Hi Dave, how are you doing?
Morning, yeah, good. You okay?
Yeah, not too bad. Exciting weekend. We've just got back from ESQ, haven't we?
A stressful weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking that myself. I was obviously I haven't done the tryout process myself from a competitor's point of view, but it is quite stressful.
Oh, it is and particularly stressful with younger dogs. I
Yeah,
found this weekend, but yeah, it is. I think unless you do it, you don't realize the amount of pressure and the stress you put yourself under. It's just horrible, to be honest. And we all say, "Why the fuck are we doing it?" Like the stress.
I know.
Oh, I can't cope.
And like I do understand why it does need to be a case of you need to perform on that moment, but everyone knows sometimes you just have a bad day and you can't
Oh,
really afford it, can you? You know?
tell me about
Oh
it.
yeah. Do you want to tell people how yours went?
Well, I mean, I scraped through on a missed seesaw and managed to come second just because no one else could get around it. But yeah, the
Pulled it out of the
first
bag.
it did. I did pull it out of the bag right at the end. Yeah, so the first day was just I don't know. She was going faster, and I wasn't prepped for it. And I just think maybe my prep hadn't been perfect with my training. I changed what I did this year, and I maybe shouldn't. She was just doing unusual things, like having some great times, like fastest time in the agility on day one, but like a missed dog walk, which she never does, and two poles, like she doesn't have poles. So that was on the agility. The jumping, she my fault. I just ran off too early. She didn't let her jump.
You're too fast.
And so, yeah, we completely buggered up. Yeah, I was too quick. I was too quick for her. Exactly what it was. So, buggered up completely day one. And then day two, first run, again, I can't remember what happened, but I was useless. Again, a pole down, I think, again. And oh, Miss Weave entry. What is she doing? And
Yeah.
then the second run, really nice run, but a missed seesaw. But we got through.
Well, I would say as well that you got through on the hardest course of the weekend.
I know. I think I liked that course. For some reason, that's the one I prefer. I think I was getting on the line on some of the others thinking, I actually don't know how to handle around this. I think I'm so inexperienced as a team with her that I was thinking, but that one, I just knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I just attacked it. And I think like I said before, I'm quite good under pressure. And
Yeah.
when I put myself in that pressure, actually hyper focuses me when I really, really want it. Whereas before, when I was just a bit nervous, I was just getting a bit like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. So it's good for me to put myself under that pressure sometimes.
I think as well, because like I know Susan or Legacy is quite similar to Cop. When they are that little bit more sensitive, we don't run them with the same intention almost. And I know
Yeah,
that's caught me out before in the past where like I'm trying to handle him kind of gently because of the type of dog he is, but actually it's not doing him any favors because then he's even
uh,
less sure. So
yeah, definitely
I mean,
better
yeah, it
when they
was
get
a
pushed.
super stressful weekend, but managed to get through, and I think that's what it's all about.
Exactly. Well, yeah,
Essentially, I know it'd be good to have good performances for the full weekend, but you just got to get through to the next round, haven't you? So what's next? What's the next stages? Explain it
next
to
we've got
everyone.
Crufts next. To be
Oh,
honest, that's
true.
will be quite different because the courses will probably be quite different. And then the weekend after that, EO qualifiers. The weekend after that, AWC qualifiers. So three really stressful. I can't cope. Stressful weekends coming up. Honestly, I was in depression after day one. Couldn't talk to anyone. Leave me alone. In the right mood, as you know. And then what happened to my little prawn that just goes clear all the time? I don't know what happened to her. So yeah, three very stressful weekends coming up.
Yeah, but then hopefully a quieter April to kind of decompress,
Oh,
but with,
hope
you know,
so.
essentially, hopefully part of the GB team moving forward again then, isn't it?
Fingers crossed for both of us. Let's see what happens. I mean, you got through with Cop as well, so well done.
Oh, thank you.
He was looking good, wasn't he? Very good.
He was,
Perfect boy.
well, I had my ass kicked basically at the beginning of January. I hadn't done any course running, which was part of the plan. I mean, you got to give him a little bit of a rest, and
Yeah.
Cop's rest was kind of November, December, and then I brought him back in January. And without course running practice, I did the first EO simulator, and we were terrible.
Oh,
We were so
yeah.
bad.
I think I actually remember.
Yeah, it
It
was
wasn't
like
bad.
I actually thought to myself, well, maybe we're not ready for doing the GB tryouts because we were
Well, that's
that
what I was
bad.
thinking this weekend. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
But yeah, got our act together from
Well,
having
I've been quite good on the lead up.
yeah, well, to be
Yeah,
honest, I
well,
don't think you had a
it's
terrible
cool.
weekend either. It was just one of those that it was like the odd mistake and it made it look worse than it was.
Oh, felt awful. Felt awful. I wanted to die. I was like, I am shit at agility. What am I doing here? We're not ready. But then, well, we'll see. Hopefully, I think my prep was consistent of a lot of course running, and it's something I don't usually do.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, the courses I have done were the SEMCAT courses, which is the course she went clear on. So maybe that really did help. But I usually do a lot more sequencing and skill stuff and a couple of courses. And I think that I overdid the course running this time and didn't work on proofing my skills enough, which is where I think we failed. So I've taken that into account, and I'll think about that more for the prep for the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's just a case of working out what works best for you. Like you said, she's such a
Oh, exactly.
young dog, young partnership in that sense. So it's finding out what works best, isn't it?
It is. I feel like very inexperienced partnership with her, and which we are. She's only 3, so we just need to, we'll get on with it. Last year, I think we got in with a bit of luck and then did well when we got there, but she is going faster now.
Yeah.
And her times this weekend were maybe, if I was running her as a young dog, like as in she wasn't my main dog, I'd be super excited thinking, oh, she's going to be cool. But because she's my main dog, because commotion isn't really cut out for this stuff, I put the pressure on her. Usually at this age, I'd be thinking, oh, well, I'll get better next year. But now I'm thinking, because she's the one I want to qualify with, it puts more pressure and stress on the situation. So I try to keep reminding myself that for one of my dogs, she's very young to be doing this stuff.
Yeah, and I do like I know what you're saying, but I do think she is good enough as well. So it's not like the pressure is unwarranted in that sense. You could definitely do well there. So right.
Fingers
Anyway,
crossed.
that's us all caught up. So we're gonna do today's podcast on rewards and rewarding in general, because it's such a big part of dog training, really, isn't it? So
It is.
you'd expect everyone knows, but explain what
Wow.
rewarding is then, and then more importantly, why? Why do we reward?
So rewarding is, how do you teach a dog something if you haven't got a reward structure in place? It's how they learn, isn't it? It's how we learn. Why does anyone want to do something without a reward at the end of it? Who would want to do that? So the most important thing is teaching, we all train positively. I think pretty much everyone in agility these days trains with positive reinforcement, which is basically a reward. That reward can be food, it can be toy, it can be whatever the dog wants. Some people have done all sorts of weird and wonderful things to reward their dogs in the past. I've probably got some stories about that later on. But having a good reward is essential, and it's not just a reward that you want it to be. It's got to be what the dog wants. Like, you have to find out what's the favorite reward for them. So just grabbing a toy, I don't feel is good enough. Like, some dogs will play with every toy just the same. I think this with Cop. He prefers certain types of toy, definitely. Though you were on a seminar recently, shut down because they were trying to make you play with another toy.
Yeah.
So it's super important that you are rewarding and using the reward that the dog really, really does want, and it's their favorite reward.
And it's quite obviously, like you say, to teach new things is important. But I've found that for me as well, it's quite good to be able to add value to something that isn't necessarily important, that isn't necessarily exciting, I should say, not necessarily important.
Oh, definitely.
Things like boundary games, that's not the most exciting thing for a dog. But like, you see some dogs that are trained really well with good reward structure, and they love that game. They love their bed, and
Yeah,
they're
of
like
course.
bounding towards it. So it's got value for that as well, hasn't it?
It's making the boring things fun. And that's what the reward is all about. So dogs don't want to stay still. They want to run around, don't they? That's why start line weights are hard. Stop contacts are hard to maintain, because that's the boring shit. So it's making the boring stuff fun. And that, if you have a good reward, then absolutely you should be able to make anything as fun as possible. But they should work for other rewards. So they should work for food. They should work for toys. And it's easier if they work for both. But you have to have, I think, something. Most dogs will have a food reward. That's quite simple. But not all dogs will have a toy reward. But as long as you have something you can throw, so even if you put the food in a lotus ball and you can throw it, because having the reward away from you is super important if you want to teach your dogs not to be too sticky and they don't have tons of self-value for the equipment.
Yeah, so you said as well about finding out what is rewarding for your dog. Is there any way that you'd suggest to go about that, or is it just trial and error?
I think just trial and error, really. I think I tend to know which toys, quite often there's a bunch of toys out, and I know which toys each dog will specifically pick. Like Fame always wanted something with a holy roller. Like, she would play with other stuff, but it wasn't the same. Susan loves the mops, but I like her using a holy roller with her. So I'm working on her really loving the little holy roller bully, so I can throw it a bit more. And
Yeah.
she does love it, but I think the mop's still her favorite. So if I'm working on something that's a bit tricky or something a bit harder, then I'll always use her favorite. If I wanted to go away from me, then I'll usually use something I can throw. So that's also important, something that is useful for you to use too, because there has to be a bit of weight behind the toy if you want to be throwing it. So having a toy that is trying to find something that they like that you can also use for the things you want to use it for. But yeah, I think it's very much trial and error on what they like. Different types of food as well. I know some of mine go absolutely crazy for a bit of cooked chicken,
Yeah.
and others will go crazy for a little cocktail sausage. Like it's very much, what they don't all like the same stuff, the same as us.
Would you say it's quite breed dependent as well with regards to, like, you don't want to generalize, but I mean, I know in my mind I've got an idea of, like, I think of certain breeds as liking certain things. What would you say with your experience of training lots of different breeds?
I think it's definitely true. Like some dogs are harder to teach tug, but I've had collies that are really hard to teach to tug, and I've had spaniels that are really easy to teach to tug. So it's very much what you put in. Like I think every dog can learn to tug. Like
Yeah.
it's prey drive, isn't it? Every dog has a prey drive. Well, I think 99% of dogs have a prey drive. So maybe some has been bred out of, but on the whole, the dogs we're using for agility have a prey drive. So you can, and I've never seen a litter of puppies that don't pick up toys and play with them ever. So I think that you can teach every dog to tug. Lots of people give up too early on the toy play, especially with other dog breeds like spaniels. But all the spaniels we train here from the beginning all have great toy play. Dan's really good at toy play, and lots of people come to him with their young spaniels, and they're all absolutely insane. So it's possible with every dog. It's just a lot of effort with some dogs.
I think it's a lot to do as well with how early you kind of try to initiate that prey drive. Do you feel
Oh,
like that makes a
definitely.
difference?
I think so, but when we've had dogs that we brought in a bit older, like when we got Scarlet, she had no clue what a toy was. Like you
No,
could
no.
throw it, you could put food in it, you could do anything. She just wouldn't even look at it. And all of a sudden, actually, Stephen Richardson was interacting with her one day with a bit of paper at a show, and she went crazy for this bit of paper. And ever since that day, she's tugged like an absolute lunatic. So you just need to find the right thing to switch it on. And her toy play is incredible now. Like she's as good as any of my dogs, if not better than most of them. And she had no clue. We didn't get her till she was 2. And she had puppies. She had no clue what a toy was. When she first got to our house, it was so cute. She occasionally used to pick something up and walk around with it. This was when she had her first litter, and I thought, oh, that's so cute that she's actually starting to interact with something. But actually, the first thing she interacted with was a big roll of kitchen roll. So she obviously likes paper and chewing
Yeah.
stuff up. So that's obviously what you've got to find the thing that switches them on to it.
So we talked then, like, about tugging in particular. Why is it more important? Well, I shouldn't say why is it more important. I'm putting value on that then. Do you think it's more important for a dog to play with a toy rather than be rewarded from food, or does it not matter? And then if it is,
Um,
why?
I think it is if you want the drive. Obviously, some spaniels will be just as crazy for food, and people say, "Oh, they're just as crazy for food," and I agree. Some of them are, but not many dogs will be as wild for food as they are for a tug and a toy. Don't forget, the toy is an extension of you. This is the thing you have to remember. A toy is the reward is an extension of you. It shouldn't just be something that they value themselves. They should value interacting with you. That's why I think the tug's super important, because it's that interaction. I don't want my dogs to get a toy and bug off by themselves and interact with it by themselves. I want to get a toy and want to bring it back to me. This is where people don't understand that connection bit. The whole point of the reward is interaction with you. The reason we use a toy is because it hurts when they bloody bite. So we want to use, you say, it's bridging the gap between us and them. So yes, you want to love the toy, but you want them to love the interaction with you and the toy more. So I do think in food doesn't create that as much, because it's just not as, you feed and it's done. It's not as interactive. You can make it more interactive, throw it a bit, run around, make them chase you, but most people don't. They just shove it in their mouths.
Yeah.
So yes, I do think having a good toy play or some sort of toy play, even if a retrieve of shut the toy, bring it back to you, is super, super important. And I would never personally train a dog only for food.
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember when I first started doing agility, so it was like 6 years ago, and I was on, and this is what I would say, it was either in your a lesson from yourself, or it was a lesson from Dan, and you put three things up on the board, and it was about what the dog values, and then the order in which they should value it. So it was like you, toys, and equipment, and you had to
Mhm.
put in the order of importance. What order would you say the importance should be? And was it you or was it Dan?
Well, I can't remember. It sounds like something I would do, but Dan might have done it too. You know, it sounds brilliant. What an amazing
Yeah.
seminar. I have to go back to my board days. Absolutely, you at the top. That is the most important thing. You and the toy. The toy, I'm not sure. Equipment and the toy. Obviously, they should value the toy more because that's what we use to reward the equipment. If the equipment is the highest value, that's when you get off courses, you get eliminations because they want to self-reward on equipment. And I had that with Boost when I got him. I mean, he is tunnel obsessed. He was tunnel obsessed. And that was high value to him than anything. You know, when I get him out in the field, he gets a toy, he just runs around through every bloody tunnel, warming himself up, you know. And I have allowed that now because now I can stop him going in a tunnel these days because I worked a lot on it. But it's his way of just, you know, almost gets out of his system a little bit at the beginning. So he definitely valued equipment more than anything else when I first got him. It took a while to get that relationship and the toy play interaction with me. But if yes, 100% not valuing equipment more than other things that you want to reward them with and you.
Yeah. And then again, when you are teaching a dog, especially a young dog, I think some people misunderstand reward structure and how important it is. So again,
Mhm.
just from someone who's got the experience in training multiple dogs of your own and then other people's, why is a reward structure important? And probably best to explain it briefly what it is, I suppose.
Like a reward structure is just knowing when to reward and knowing and the dog's actually valuing that reward. That's your reward structure. That's how I see it. And so many people, and I quite often say, when I'm training dogs, why are you rewarding that? Like, why is the toy in the dog's mouth right now? What has it done? You've just told it to come to you and it's bugged off into a tunnel and you've given it a reward. People are quite confused, and all over the world this is, and I'm like, stop rewarding shit. I say it all the time. People are quite confused as to, you know, sometimes a lot of people reward because they think it's their fault. And oh, I've got to give the dog a reward because that was my fault. But and I agree with that to some extent. And if I truly believe I did something wrong, I will give my dogs a reward. But they don't have to have a jackpot. That's the other good thing about the toy reward is you can give it to them, take it off them. So yeah, well done. But the interaction with me should be the jackpot reward. So knowing what to reward is important. Knowing your dogs as well, because every dog should be different. I can reward Susan used to be able to, for having bars down, and it didn't matter. Now I might be changing that after the weekend. But she usually would go, "Oh, I had a bar down. I'll try not to do that again." But some people will never reward, will always stop and correct every single bar. And I'm like, I think you have to be very careful with knowing your dogs for that because sometimes they do just make a mistake. And if you correct everything, they actually start overthinking and they don't know what was right and what was wrong. And then, you know, you might be so late with your correction, they might have done 5 other behaviors before you actually go back to it. So if you are going to reward correct things like that, you have to be super quick. But also, you don't need to give them a jackpot reward for having a bar down. You can just go, okay, well done, but we'll do that again. You know, it has to be different levels of reward. That's also part of the reward structure. It's not. That's why just having the toy alone shouldn't be the highest value thing. That's why the interaction with you should be the highest value thing. Because I will quite often go, oh, good try. I'll give you something for that, even if it's a bit of food, but I won't jackpot it. If it's the best thing ever, I will jackpot. But knowing, yes, lots of people will reward bad stuff. So if you say tunnel and they don't go in it and they do something else, don't reward that. And something people do all the time that drives me mad is they don't fix the issue. So if I say tunnel, say jump, say right, say left, I expect that behavior to happen. If it doesn't happen, what am I not going to do? Well, what I'm not going to do is go back 5 jumps and try and do it again. I'm going to fix what just happened. So if I say tunnel, they don't go in it, I will make them go in that tunnel and they will get a small reward for it. If I then I'll repeat the exercise and they will go in the tunnel, hopefully first time, and then I will jackpot it. But what I don't do is go back a few obstacles because then you will change what you do to help them go into the tunnel, do whatever you didn't ask them to do. So they're training you to help them rather than you saying, I gave you this verbal cue, go and do that. So huge point is always fix the thing that went wrong right there and then quickly. Like if you ask for a backside, they take the face side. No, make them do the backside, small reward, then repeat. So, and don't just, oh, it's my fault. I gave my backside cue a bit later. I'll give them a toy. You don't have to reward it. Just go, okay, whoopsie, we'll do it again. Don't reward the stuff, the crap stuff, especially when you've got a bit more of an advanced dog and you think they do know their verbal cues. Young dog, I might reward a bit more for stuff if they do it wrong, but I'll try and always fix it and then reward. Oh, I went on for ages then, but I hope that was quite an important
No, it
point.
was quite good because you actually covered what I was going to ask next, but I'll get a little bit more clarity on it, I think. So with my dogs, like I said, I've got two that I'm currently working, and Funk is a lot easier to train because if it goes wrong, I can be very black and white and I can just kind of be like, nope, come on, we can try that again. And she doesn't take it to
Yeah,
heart. But the one thing
yeah,
that I found has made a massive difference to her because she is a little bit more pushy, shall we say,
yeah,
is to have a much stricter criteria in my reward structure. And that, in all
definitely.
fairness, someone who helped me see that was Sean when I was doing the running contact with her. And a jackpot has to be a jackpot in the
Oh
sense
yeah,
that if it is something exactly you want, the dog needs to understand that there needs to be clarity between good reward and jackpot. And then equally,
definitely.
there needs to be clarity between no reward and a good reward. So having that very clear idea of what is a good reward and then rewarding appropriately for that level, I think has made a big difference for Funk. And she's been a lot easier to teach because of it.
Yeah, definitely. It is, and she's because, like you say, she's a tougher dog. You can be very, very clear. With Boost, I'm incredibly clear with what I do and don't like. And he's very much like, absolutely not, you little shit. And yes, I really like that. That was great. But he doesn't care. If I say don't do that again, he's like just barks at me and doesn't give a shit. Whereas if I did that with Susan, she would be a puddle on the floor. So she's getting tougher because I've rewarded a lot. But I do, you have to know your dogs. Sometimes you do just have to reward them to keep them happy, but the reward doesn't have to be the toy in the mouth. It could just be jump up at you, a little cuddle. You don't have to go crazy with the toy play to reward. That's what I'm always trying to get at people. It doesn't have to have a toy in the mouth because that is your main reward is toy in mouth and tug.
Yeah.
That if you've got a tugging dog, that is the best thing. If you've got a food dog, that makes it harder because obviously you're not going to have different pockets for a different level of value of food, kibble in one, cheese in the other, meat in the other. That's why it's easier having a toy play dog because you can your levels of reward can be very different. With food, it's either reward or not.
Yeah.
So, and obviously you can jackpot, throw a few more bits and stuff, but it's not quite the same kind of toy.
No,
It's not wrong
I
for
agree. I
a
agree.
food rewarded dog, but it's just harder. I believe it's harder to make them understand exactly what you wanted and what you didn't.
I was going to say the one thing that I see that I'm never really sure is a good idea, but I wanted your opinion on it. And it might sound like I'm being um, picking on a certain size, but it definitely seems to be more in the small and medium classes. Again, give me your thoughts. When you see people queuing, they are just rewarding. They're not asking for anything. They're not like trying to get a behavior and rewarding. They're literally just rewarding to keep their dog occupied whilst
Yeah, for
something is
breeding.
happening in the ring. So is that a good idea? I mean, it doesn't seem
Well,
like a good
no.
idea to me. I mean,
It,
it's
we used to talk. Me and Dan used to do a workshop called 110%. Trying to get the best out of dogs. We talked so much about. I think we should do a few more of them. We talked so much about reward structure and when to reward and what to reward. And we have a lot of toy play rules and rewarding rules. And one of them, big one, is do not reward for nothing. Like you don't reward your dogs just to be keeping quiet. Like
yes, that's
don't
essentially
get
what it
the
is, isn't
toy.
it?
Yeah, the toy is not a dummy. The toy is not a dummy. That's a huge one. The toy is also not dental floss. Some people do try and tug their dogs and just shove it in their mouth and just floss their teeth with it. That drives us crazy. So don't force the toy play. The dogs have to want that reward so much. And if you are rewarding for absolutely nothing, then you're just devaluing it. So, like I always say, this is a good analogy. If you get paid, it's like basically money for us. So, like if you got paid £1 million every day for sitting around doing nothing, you're absolutely loaded. And then I offer you maybe £500,000 to actually do something. Now, would you want it? This is a question for you. Would you want it if you're already a billionaire?
Yeah, not so much.
No, maybe
Load
you
it.
might do it something you enjoy, but now if I ask you to do something you might not enjoy, something a bit hard, are you going to do it? Of
No.
course you're not going to do it because you're already a billionaire. Like I don't want my dogs to be billionaires. I actually want them to be quite poor. Like they can have lots of love. They can have love, but the toy, the actual reward, I want them to be poor. So when I offer it, I want them to go, oh my God, I want, if you're poor, living in some sort of tiny little flat somewhere with no money for food, and someone offers you £1 million, you're going to go wild for it. And that's exactly what it is with the dogs. You want them to be a bit poor. So when you offer them that massive reward, they're going to go, oh my God, that's the best thing ever. I'm going to work my absolute butt off to try and get it.
Yeah, I agree. It was always the thing, and I don't know, it probably happens in the large queues as well, but I just see it a lot in the small and medium queues.
Uh,
I might be being
I mean,
sizist.
I do reward my dog in the queue, but I let her watch for a bit, then I will connect off the watch, and then I'll play with her for not watching. So they are getting the play for a reward. But I try my hardest one is not to reward too much in the queue because I want to save that for the end. I use it for warming up. I don't use it just to distract. I use it just to interact. I don't mind my dog watching as long as it's not screaming their heads off. If I've got a dog screaming its head off in the queue, it's going to be out the queue somewhere, either in a downstay or someone's going to be holding it away from the queue. I won't just allow it just to self-reward by screaming the whole way through.
But that's the thing as well, isn't it? You're rewarding attention. It's not just giving
Yeah,
the reward so
no,
that you can talk
no,
to someone and your dog won't be lunging at the ring kind of thing. And that's
no.
that's what
But
I'm getting at.
it's the whole people that want to do really well and the weekend warriors, isn't it? People that are just happy to, and that's cool. They're happy to go along and just have fun with their dogs, and that's cool. But if you want to improve and do well and win, which I think everyone really does, then you have to rethink about every time that reward goes in your dog's mouth, what did it get it for?
Agree. So I've been thinking because of this question I knew I was going to ask, and I've seen some funny ones. As you said, some dogs find certain things rewarding, and you have to play to your dog's strengths. And if it finds a certain thing rewarding, then I guess you do that as a reward. So, what's the strangest rewards you've seen, or even used yourself? What ones have you used for yourself, and what's the
All right,
strangest
so
you've seen?
I've used myself. Fame was really obsessive with like sticks and brushing, sweeping. She was obsessed with it, wild for it. So when I was training her stop contacts, I used to just get a stick and just whack it on the floor at the end. She used to go absolutely mental for it. Also a little brush, dustpan and brush. She used to get that brush and brush it on the floor at the end of the contact. She used to go crazy for that shit. So I've used that and that. I've used a bottle with Urban when I was training him before he couldn't see. I used to always, if I did something really good, wanted to jackpot him, I'd run out the arena and go get the hose and squirt him in the face with a hose
Yeah,
because he went like sent him absolutely wild. Also used the paddling pool. They've done great. I've sent them to the pool for an extra reward because obviously on a hot day, not in the winter.
yeah.
And jump in a big pile of ice. That wouldn't be much of a reward. So yeah, I've used and different things, not totally unusual, but different. I think the weirdest one was I was in America teaching, and this dog stopped on his A-frame and she tickled its balls. Like I said, what are you doing? She said,
You
I'm
ran on the
rewarding him.
A-frame, didn't you? You ran on there with him.
Ow! I thought, oh my God, I don't know what to say. She was a bit crazy. I said, I don't know what to say. And she was tickling his fucking nuts. I couldn't believe, and he honestly, his face, he went into a bit of a daze. And I was like, well, he's loving it.
Yeah, I
I
was
mean,
gonna say.
didn't have a particularly fast A-frame, so I'm not sure how much he loved it. But
Well,
yeah,
I
I was
reckon he was
quite.
just trying to make the moment last.
Yeah, I think exactly what he was doing, just standing there going gormless. He loved it. So, but yeah, well, I was a lot younger then. I just accepted it. Nowadays, I might have just talked to her about how weird it really was. But he liked it. She
Yeah,
didn't seem to mind doing it.
the rumor
So
from that training day was that you were queuing up to go on the A-frame next.
I was in the 2-on-2 off.
The weirdest one I've seen, and it's like it's not weird, haha. It's kind of like a bit disconcerting. This really nice person. I'm not knocking the person, and she's doing the right thing because it's what the dog finds rewarding, but it is freaky. She's got a baby doll's head on a rope.
Oh,
It
oh
looks
my
like
God, it's a
something
horror
out of a
movie.
horror film. It's
It's
mental.
a fucking horror movie.
It is. It is.
That
It's
is
actually
creepy as hell.
Yeah, it is. It gives those vibes. It gives the I am a serial killer vibe when the dog is like launching at this baby's head to try, but it
Oh
obviously
my
loves it. So I mean, it is
God.
the right thing
And
to do, but it is mad as
well,
well.
the dog loves it. I also had someone who used to reward with a water pistol. He used to pull out his pistol and shoot it on the end of the contact. And the funniest thing was, though, there was a guy, and because the water pistol leaked, it always looked like he'd pissed himself. Like a little dribble, and he was an older guy, so it always looked like there was a little dribble coming out. It was a bit, well, if you didn't know what he was rewarding with, it was a bit gross. I mean, I hope it was the water pistol
I
leaking.
was going to
I'm not
say, yeah,
100%
maybe that
sure.
was his plan, just
Maybe
to
it
mask
wasn't.
the fact that he does pee himself.
Yeah, maybe that is true. But yeah, that was always quite funny because it was like a Western film. He'd just turn around and get his gun out and shoot it on the end of the dog walk, and the dog was loving it. So that was quite a funny one as well.
Do you call him Tinkles?
Because, yeah, although he had lots of names. I won't go into that.
So it's the time of the week. We go to Agility Net to find our question, but first is the theme. Agility Net question of the week. So you ready for the question this week? It's a big one.
Always ready.
Best treats for a manners minder, and they must be moist.
Yeah, the moist. Everyone loves moist. Well, the best ones are 100% Eden semi-moist. They're only semi-moist though.
They're only
They're not moist.
semi-moist.
But I do think the dogs tend to love them. There's loads of different flavors. They're perfect size. They plop out those. I'm like, fucking hate manners minders. Don't you just hate them? The amount of times I've kicked my manners minder, I've punched my manners minder.
I know.
I mean, I hate them, but they're very useful. But they are the best treats. They don't seem to clog it up too much. If it does, that's my other tip. If they do clog up, kick it because it's the only thing that tends to work.
The things that fry me on the manners minder is when they do something amazing and you try to click it and then it doesn't work. And then the opposite is when they do something terrible and the button jams, so they get jackpotted.
Oh my God, and it's just going, and you have to sprint over there. No, you're not. And they're thinking, oh, that was amazing, that is. Oh my God, that thing, and that little light where it doesn't come on, you give it a little nudge, little nudge, little nudge, and you kick it a bit hard. Then it comes on, you think, don't move it. And then it's in the wrong spot because you've kicked it. I mean, I hate manners minders. Mine aren't too bad, but as soon as Dan steals my one and starts using it, it breaks. It breaks because he does something. His button, he goes wild on the button, and the button stops bloody working. So yeah, whatever. That's another tip. Never let Dan borrow your manners minder.
Well, that's our chances for a manners minder sponsorship gone into dust. But
someone invent a better one.
No, I agree. Mine never works when I want it to, and then it works as if it's been paid 1,000 times when you don't want it to as well. But that's us for this week then. So as always, say goodbye, David.
Bye, David.
See you later.
See you later.